practice more.
What happens when the strongest man in the world loses everything and still has to wake up the next day? For over a decade, we thought Ryuga's story ended in a blaze of glory against the god of destruction. We thought his death was a clean, heroic sacrifice and a passing of the torch. But what if it wasn't? What if the Dragon Emperor didn't die to save the world, but was dragged into a nightmare of his own making? Today, we're talking about the return of Ryuga in Beyblade Beyond, not as the Dragon Emperor, but as a man trying to survive the quiet that comes after the storm. This is the story of the Dragon Emperor's second life.
You're from a long line of confused humans. People who become obsessed with the power of bays. People who let evil overwhelm them and lose themselves in their greed. Smash it to pieces along with our horrible past! Let it rip!
Alright, so to understand where Ryuga is going, we have to look at where he left off. And if we're being completely honest, Metal Fury did Ryuga dirty. More dirty than the average Beyblade hype beast on TikTok would like to admit. It assassinated a character arc that took 2 seasons to build. In Metal Masters, Ryuga arguably had the best arc in the entire anime. He went from a villain consumed by the dark power to a lone wolf who mastered it through sheer willpower. He became a reluctant member to Tsubasa, teaching him how to conquer his own inner darkness by becoming one with it instead of being swallowed by it. He stood against Dr. Ziggurat's arrangement system because he despised the idea of artificial unearned power. That's the thing people forget about Ryuga. He and Jinga actually believed in a lot of the exact same things. Hard work, blader spirit, the bond between a blader and their bay. The difference was just in how they lived it. Jinga was the golden boy. He grew stronger through bonds and the positive influence that Beyblade creates. Ryuga was the guy who got there alone, no matter who suffered the collateral damage, and didn't apologize for it. But he understood Jinga. He was the perfect anti-hero. But then came Metal Fury. Instead of building on that, the writers hit the reset button. Ryuga went back to his Metal Fusion mentality, obsessed with power for power's sake. When he learned about the star fragment, his immediate reaction wasn't to protect the world from Nemesis, it was to steal the power of the legendary Bladers and make himself a god. He actively refused to help Jinga. And this is the exact same season where Kyoya did the exact same thing. Regressed back to a power-hungry, stupid fucking loser just so he could learn a lesson he already learned. Both of them, same season, stripped of their development so the plot could manufacture a redemption arc they didn't need. And we need to talk about the fandom's toxic obsession with Ryuga here. And I'm not just talking about the people who comment Ryuga images under every one of my TikToks. People love the aura. They love the swag, they love the hype moments. But aura doesn't excuse character regression. Most of the fandom refuses to actually engage with the character beneath the surface. They look at his final battle against Rago and frame it as a heroic sacrifice. But look closer. He didn't fight Rago to save the world. He fought him because his ego couldn't handle the existence of something stronger. When the Dragon Emperor Life Destructor failed to even scratch Nemesis, that went beyond just a physical defeat. That was the complete, humiliating shattering of his entire ideology. I repeat, Rago didn't merely beat Ryuga. He humiliated and shattered the premise that strength equals freedom. Because here is the tragic truth about Ryuga. He was always a pawn. And Doji called this out. In Metal Fusion, he thought he was the strongest, but his power was stolen from others. He got stronger because of his opponent's hate and fear, making him the complete antithesis of Jinga in terms of what it actually means to be a blader. And eventually, El Drago itself took the driver's seat. When Ryuga was battling with his own blader spirit against Kyoya, the dark power hijacked him. He was a vessel. In Masters, despite his positive character arc and his active efforts to atone for and shed his past by helping Team Jinga fight Hades Inc., his battles, his struggles still ended up being used as data for the enemy. And in Metal Fury, he thought he was chasing ultimate power, but he was merely just feeding Nemesis. He chased power simply to end up being a pawn of someone else. Every single time he did that. While someone like Jinga remains free for his good deeds, Ryuga is forever trapped in obligation. Beneath all the hype moments and insane aura farming, Ryuga is somewhat of a tragic character. He is also the dark future of what happens when you are never satisfied. And because Metal Fury ended in a place where he could not just go back to his old self, I had to go this drastic with his changes in Beyblade Beyond. So, in Beyblade Beyond, Ryuga awakens in the underworld, but this is not, just a generic hellscape. It is the dark pole of star fragment energy. See, in this lore, when a light-aligned bay like Pegasus is drained, it withdraws to a quiet place to recover. But El Drago follows a different law. It goes to the other side, and because Ryuga's death wasn't clean, because he was fused with El Drago's spirit, once marked by the dark power and carrying unresolved guilt, he does not pass on peacefully. He was dragged down with it. Down there, he finds Damien Hart. See, Damien has spent years refining Hades' Gate until it became a stable access point to this realm, turning it into a real place with controllable openings. Damien has turned hell into a kingdom built from broken Blader's spirits, Doji, Pluto, the whole power worship without restraint endpoint. And Damien taunts Ryuga with the ultimate truth, that Ryuga's entire pursuit of power and independence still ended up with him being a pawn. Damien challenges Ryuga for dominance of the realm, using Hades' gate structures to restrict movement and drain Ryuga's momentum. Ryuga fights back, but El Drago in its golden armored edition is incomplete and unstable. He starts losing. Damien escalates the psychological pressure, insisting Ryuga belongs here. But then, Ryuga remembers Kenta. He remembers the star fragment transfer. He remembers that his final act was selfless. He remembers that Kenta made him go serious, meaning he can't return as the same man he was before because he made a promise. He decides he must escape, not to conquer, not to become the Dragon Emperor, but to ensure Kenta isn't forced to carry the dragon's burden alone. And that's when Ryuga feels it. He feels a frequency. Back on Earth, the seal beneath that volcano is an anchor built for El Drago's frequency, and because the seal has been cracking for years, it stops behaving like a lock and starts behaving like a beacon. Damien tries to close the opening and keep Ryuga trapped, but Ryuga forces one final exchange. He breaks free. He claws his way out like a man being born through glass. The edges of the gate scrape and crystallize him, and the moment his feet hit Earth, the environment reacts. Ash lifts. The seal in Coma Village groans. The air itself feels electrically heavy. El Drago does not return as Destructor. El Drago Guardian is born, not as a direct upgrade per se, but as a survival form forged by the Anchor's material in the trauma of Ryuga's return. Ryuga stands there transformed, strong and still, but not exactly triumphant, like a consequence that has finally arrived. But the punishment is what happens next. He returns, and it's quiet. The world moved on, and that silence becomes the real punishment. He's not recognized, nor is he feared anymore. He's a mistake that survived. He wanders until the one place that still feels like the origin of the sin calls him back, Coma Village. But even there, the twist is humiliating. The Damien fight didn't redeem him. It planted the sick thought that Beyblade doesn't free humans. It amplifies their worst instincts into a machine that manufactures demons. And the WBBA is the institution that keeps that machine socially acceptable. This brings us to Kenta and eventually Hikaru Hasuma. Kenta is the first to confront him. The WBBA detects Ryuga's return due to Coma Village's geological reactions and labels him an S-class threat. Kenta is dispatched and they battle. But Ryuga isn't fighting to destroy Kenta, he's testing him. He's testing whether Kenta's resolve holds under fear and pressure without collapsing into reckless desperation. Kenta loses the battle but doesn't break. Ryuga acknowledges his worth, stabilizes the seal by sinking Guardian's resonance to the anchor point, and remains as the keystone. Kenta is left with the truth, that inheritance remains his burden even if Ryuga is physically present as the seal. Then comes Hikaru. Now the CEO of the WBBA, she hasn't battled competitively in almost 10 years because of the trauma Ryuga inflicted on her. She tries to convince herself the Ryuga situation is over, but the seal fluctuations prove otherwise. She enters Coma Village privately, attempting to frame the incident as purely logistical, but Ryuga challenges her denial. He reframes the true conflict. The WBBA's culture of ranking, spectacle, and the pursuit of power and glory creates monsters. He provokes her into a private battle at the anchor zone, not to kill her, but to test whether she can maintain control under trauma triggers and accept responsibility as leadership rather than hide behind PR. Hikaru battles Ryuga without a crowd or a broadcast. She keeps her emotional spikes controlled to avoid destabilizing the seal. She proves that she can face him without collapsing into rage or fear, and she commits to real policy changes. Strict Coma Village quarantine enforcement, preventing legend chasing, and restructuring the WBBA training culture. Ryuga accepts a pact of containment. He remains the keystone at Coma Village, while Hikaru takes responsibility for ensuring the world does not recreate the conditions that produced him. As proof that his ideology isn't self-serving, he doesn't get a victory lap. He becomes an anchor point that allows the new generation of Beyblade to foster. But this is not a happy ending for him, and while the action ends up being selfless, it's a tragedy. Ryuga is forever trapped in obligation, while Hikaru leaves with peace because she finally faced what broke her and lived through it. This spiritual shift is perfectly reflected in his new Beyblade, Eldrago Guardian 90CS. Eldrago Destructor was built for overwhelming explosive offense, inflicted after storing power with its final survive bottom. Guardian is fundamentally different. Though its wheel is an offshoot from Destructor, it was forged from the very crystal material that Eldrago was originally sealed in at Coma Village. It is heavier, armored, and defensive. It represents a return to origins, a sealing of the destructive potential that once defined Ryuga. The 90s spin track is one of the lowest tracks available in the Metal Fight meta, second only to 85. It forces the bay incredibly close to the stadium floor. For an attack type, that low height is used to strike the opponent from below and destabilize them. But for Guardian, it means something different, Ryuga being grounded. He is no longer soaring through the sky as the untouchable Dragon Emperor. He is rooted to the earth, absorbing hits rather than starting to deal them outright. It is a posture of humility and defense. The CS Coat Sharp Performance Tip is a hybrid tip, a sharp plastic center surrounded by a wide ring of rubber. When spinning upright, it acts as a stamina defense type, holding the center of the stadium and absorbing impacts with minimal friction. But if knocked off balance, the rubber ring makes contact with the stadium floor, causing the bay to aggressively accelerate, grip the stadium, and counterattack. That's Ryuga right now. His obligation is to be left alone, but if you push him too far, the dragon wakes up. The strategy, cling and cripple. Battles are drawn out. Momentum is swayed slowly through consistent contact and disruption. It's a Beyblade built for survival, and so it doesn't seek to burst the opponent in one hit. It seeks to outlast them, to weather the storm. But the moment an opponent knocks Eldrago off balance, it shifts into an overwhelming offensive force. Spirit Sense is his new defensive move. Eldrago reads the intent of the opponent blader, predicts their movements, and absorbs their kinetic energy without retaliating. It is the ultimate expression of Ryuga refusing to engage in the cycle of violence. He takes the hit, absorbs the intent, and neutralizes the threat. Dragon Emperor's Soaring Rebirth is the move he used to claw his way out of hell, similar to the Dragon Fist, but instead of a destructive explosion meant to annihilate the opponent, this move channels absorbed energy into a blinding, purifying light. It is a move of pacification, of ending the conflict rather than winning it. And yes, Eldrago can still use most of its old special moves, but more often than not, Ryuga chooses not to. To me, Ryuga's arc in Beyblade Beyond is more than just a cool anime storyline. It is deeply, painfully personal. It connects directly to me, to my own life, and to my 15-year journey creating the Changers. In a way, my work on that series ended up becoming a power high. But that power can become a curse when you don't know how to live outside of it. Like Ryuga relying on the dark power, I relied on my work to numb the pain of feeling unseen. I turned myself into a superhero. I built a kingdom out of my trauma, just like Damien built his kingdom in the underworld. But when some of the people closest to me treated my life's work as a footnote, when they refused to engage in the very thing that kept me alive, the armor cracked. Ryuga returning to the surface and finding that the world has moved on is exactly how it feels to finish a massive project. Look around and realize you are still empty. You ask yourself, if I already proved what I could do, why don't I feel fulfilled? You realize that the audience of strangers on the internet don't fill the void left by the silence of the people you love. Ryuga is the dark future of what I went through with the Changers. To never be satisfied, to constantly chase the next level of power, the next level of validation, only to realize that you are still trapped. His journey from Dragon Emperor to Guardian is about learning to live without the armor. It's about realizing that you don't have to be feared or worshipped or constantly performing to have value. It's about redefining what your power is for. If you've ever felt like your best moment has passed, that your peak is behind you, Ryuga's story asks a vital question. What if your second life is still ahead of you? What does it look like to live without shame and still have structure? What does it look like to not be known and not have to perform? To walk away from the need for power and instead accept your mission without compromise. In the world of Beyblade, this is not a flashy comeback. It's a quiet shift. And sometimes the most meaningful growth isn't loud. It's about letting go of the need to be feared and learning how to build something instead. The tragedy of Ryuga is that he never learned his lesson until it was too late. He spent his entire life chasing power only to realize that power without purpose is just another form of imprisonment. He became the strongest blader in the world, but he was never truly free. His legacy is not one of triumph, but of caution, a warning to anyone who thinks that strength alone is enough to save them. But for Hikaru, and for me, and maybe for you, there is still time. We can choose a different path. We can choose to face our fears, to confront the trauma, and to build something new. We can choose to live without the armor, and in doing so, we can finally find the peace that Ryuga never could. Ultimately, Beyblade Beyond is not about erasing the past. It's about acknowledging it. It's about looking at the scars, the mistakes, and the broken pieces of who you used to be and deciding that you are not restricted by that. You are not going to be stuck there forever. It's about taking the weight of what you were and using it as a foundation to build a new future. The Dragon Emperor's second life may be a tragedy, but it doesn't have to be ours. We can learn from his mistakes. We can choose to be the authors of our own stories. And no matter how far we've fallen, we can always rise again. Leaving Ryuga like this feels a little odd because he's pretty much synonymous with the word aura. But with the way I'm approaching the philosophies behind characters in Beyblade Beyond, he can't just be some untouchable, power-hungry aura farmer anymore. In order to evolve, he would need to become a man who was forced to confront what his strength actually meant once the world stopped romanticizing it. But Ryuga's return doesn't only affect him. It leaves scars and questions that ripple throughout the people around him. Kenta now has to carry the weight of inheriting the Dragon Emperor's legacy without letting it consume him. Tsubasa, despite conquering his own dark power many years ago, is still chasing the darkness hidden beneath the cracks of the Beyblade world and starting to realize even he may not be built for the horrors that he keeps uncovering. And Hikaru has to confront the fact that the trauma Ryuga left her with never truly disappeared in the first place. Those are the characters that I really want to make videos about when the Beyblade Beyond series returns in full swing in 2027. For the rest of the year though, most of the actual work is happening in the background. Comics, limited animation tests, actual story production with an episode structure. I'll still be dropping periodic updates every month or two alongside redesigns and bios as Beyblade Beyond fully moves into the Metal Masters era, starting with Wang Huzhong and expanding outward from there. But I'm also balancing other projects that matter deeply to me, building the F-Zero fanbase initiative into something real, producing the Sin Package one-shot, and bringing the Changers back the way it deserves. Beyblade Beyond was never meant to be just nostalgia bait to me. It may have started that way, but I had to dig deep and realize something. I had to realize what I was making it for. Because it's so much more. It's me learning how to take worlds people love and push them towards the emotional places they are always capable of reaching. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and please, keep the revolution going.